Roman Dolidze squares it up against Marvin Vettori, beating him over 5 rounds. It's the UFC Fight Night 254 recap, and it's up next on Fighting with Friends. Welcome back to Fighting with Friends, the undisputed African fighting podcast champion of the world. UFC Fight Night 254 took place on Sunday morning at 1 a.m. South African time from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. And with me reacting to it today is the reigning, defending, undisputed vegan champion of the world. That is, of course, Brother Gaia.
That was like, we should have just started the track after all the fluffs. It would have been the best, just like proceeding to the episode. Anyway.
Mondays, bro. It is a Monday. But yeah, PG, it is UFC Fight Night 254. And as always, we start
at the top of the card.
And at the top of the card, we did see Roman Dolidze defeat Marvin Vettori over 5 rounds, making it 1-1 in the series. So you hyped for the trilogy here, BG?
Like, that was a loaded question. I don't know if I can be out for the trilogy, but we might just see that in the future of these two athletes, because it's now 1-1, like you say. And yeah, I think it was the correct decision. Unanimous decision was also the right answer for me. I think Roman Dolidze did really well to fight over 5 rounds, because we haven't seen him do it before, and he did it really well. And against an athlete or against a fighter that was considered to be quite highly ranked. Okay, he's been out for 2 years, but he's had quite a good resume at the UFC. And you and I were saying it. I know you were saying it quite often in the preview that you're not too convinced about someone being laid off for 2 years and coming back. It's like, are we going to see a good Vettori over the 5 rounds? And look, the dude was competitive. He was in there, but I don't know if he did enough for me to actually make the fight as even as some of the guys were saying during the fight over Twitter. Some people saying 2-2 going into the 5th round. I was like, I don't know if I can agree with that. I mean, I think he dropped the Dolidze in round 3, and that was the round that he actually won. Other than that, I don't know if he won round 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Rounds 1, 2, 4, and 5. I think Roman Dolidze did really well. I think in round 4, Vettori had to get that round for him to make it 2-2 going to the 5th, but he didn't. He took a break in that 4th round, and Roman didn't let him up at all. Roman was actually going forward quite frequently. I must say I was impressed with how conditioned and how accurate he was throughout the fight. I mean, he wasn't throwing a lot of combos. He wasn't, just letting his hands go quite frequently. But when he did go, he was going. He had a lot of tips through the high kicks. A lot of them were blocked, but he threw them very hard. He got Vettori not liking them. He was chopping at the leg. He checked some of Vettori's kicks. And yeah, I got to say, Roman did deserve the win. It wasn't the flashiest of fights, but I think it was entertaining nonetheless. I mean, Roman's face did look busted up. There was times where Vettori did throw some good boxing combinations, and you close the one eye of left eye of Roman's. And Roman Vettori was the one that pushed forward. But like we said in the preview, you're not gonna be able to knock Vettori out. A lot of guys have hit him very hard, and he's never been rocked. He's never been stopped. So I was just like, I don't know if Roman's gonna get him out of there, but he did exactly what he needed to do, and that was be a lot more active in moments where Vettori was taking breaks. Roman didn't let him take that break, and he stole the rounds every single. Not stole, but he grabbed those moments which tipped the fight into his favor. And yeah, again, good performance for him. I just don't know if the performance was good enough to make Dana White go, hey, let's consider Roman Dolidze as a top contender. Let's give him, let's prioritize his career now. I don't know if that kind of performance was big. Look, at the end of the day, Eric Nixick, Merab Dvalishvili did a very good job in his corner, and it looks like a different Roman Dolidze. It looks very different. I mean, in the past, I didn't sing about his name so much because he didn't put on that amazing performances. Very sluggish when he did fight. But look, we have to give him props in this one because Vettori is the kind of guy that you have to stay active every time because he's always active. He's never really pausing, you know what I mean? But in this fight, Vettori did slow down a lot because of the 2-year gap. You have to face it. He was a slower fighter. He didn't look the same way he did. He was getting pieced up when he didn't have to, and I think that was just signs of someone who needed to fight someone else. Let's say probably was that tune-up fight according to the UFC. It probably would have been a tune-up fight for Vettori, but let's say was putting on a good record. I mean, he's now 3 fights undefeated in this division, so yeah, big props for Roman Dolidze. I'm just not too sure about the future of the guys. The performance wasn't that entertaining.
Mm. Yeah, agreed. We'll get to the future in a second, BG. But if we just come back to the stats, sort of round by round,
Yeah.
I was kind of in the same boat as you. I had it 4-1 till let's say 3-2 at most. And I
Mm.
think that some people would have given round 3-2 Vittori,
Yes, that's
just
the
because
only
of
one for
odds they
me.
were giving. Yeah, yeah. So I think they gave him round one and round three.
Oh, I
So
see on the screen.
those were the two that if you were to call it 3-2, those are the two rounds
Mm.
you'd have given to Vittori. But absolutely the right decision on the night for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think something that was quite impressive for me was the Litse's kind of technical ability here. I
Yeah.
thought that going into the fight, Vittori would be the more technical fighter.
Mm.
But the Litse looked very good. Well, against the caliber of opponent that he fought, he looked very good.
Yeah.
Something specifically that stood out was I was switching stances to close distance. It was very
Yeah.
good. And every time he would switch stances to close the distance, he would have Vittori overextend into that
Mm.
into range and then just
Yes.
punish him from there. So that was something that stood out to me from a more
Mm.
technical side, which I didn't expect. This is why I'm highlighting it because I thought, like I was saying, Vittori would be the better technical fighter.
Mm.
So fair play to the Litze in that regard. But BG, let's go to
Yeah.
the future of these fighters. We're going to go to the middleweight division here, where
Yeah.
Dricus du Plessis is, of course, the champion. So the Litze sitting at 12 now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what would you envision next in his future here, bro?
Paulo Costa. Just because I don't know why Paulo Costa's ranking is still going up on the screen, to be honest with you. He's been on back-to-back losses. Hasn't fought now since against since who did he fight last?
I don't even know if he's still active in
That's what I'm
the
saying. Like, why is he still there? Honestly,
him
because
and
I think
Vittori. Like, what the flip, bro?
why are they still there exactly? That's what I'm thinking. Like the UFC's probably not going to give him someone like a Baralio or someone high. Brendan Allen just lost
Definitely
Fluffy
not. Yeah.
Hernandez. Is obviously Fluffy Hernandez is on the tear at the moment, and he's actually racking up a lot more views than the Litze. He's much more of a fan favorite. So it's
Yeah.
like they're probably going to prioritize Hernandez to fight someone else like a Baralio maybe. So for the Litze, the next best fight would be someone like a Paulo Costa or Brendan Allen, and I know that's like it's just one or two places above him, but that is the
I mean,
reality of the
he's probably
situation.
going to go up now, having beat
Yeah,
Vittori. So he's probably going to be around 8, or he's going to take Vittori's ranking, maybe.
maybe. I don't know if they will put him above Fluffy Hernandez, to be honest.
Yeah,
But if they
maybe they
do
put him at 9.
at 90, and then Hernandez will go up to 8, maybe. That's probably what they do. But I would probably love to see the lead say go up against someone like a maybe even Cannonier. Cannonier would be a good fight for him, actually. That would be
Mm,
a really good fight for the lead say, especially because Cannonier is the guy who beat Vittori as well, just before you just after Vittori lost to the Litze. So
mm.
that would be a really good fight to watch. Something I wanted to also touch base before you came onto this part was you mentioned that Vittori won possibly won the first round, and I looked at the stats there as well, and they gave him significant strikes. But I was thinking, but Litze landed the harder shots. He actually landed the cleaner and harder shots in that first round. So I was
Mm.
like, so what is significant then? What's the
Yeah,
rating for significant
it's
strikes?
very gray, bruh. Like you have to actually watch the fight back. Like I saw on the Weasel MMA's channel, he does like very good breakdowns and he shows like
Mm,
what is a significant strike exactly. So
mm,
check his channel out, ladies and gentlemen. Making
okay,
great content. Shout out to the Weasel. But yeah, it is very murky and very gray unless you actually really sit down
strange.
and be like, you know. But yeah,
Yeah,
but
but
just
coming
kind
back.
of coming back to it, yeah. I was gonna say myself, I think looking at it the way it's shaping up that the Litze would fight Hernandez, but I do like that Cannonier fight a little bit more because I think Hernandez is slightly in a stratosphere above the Litze
Mm,
at the
mm,
moment, yeah. So I do like that Cannonier fight definitely.
yeah, makes sense.
Um, yeah.
And
Anything else from
Cannonier
you?
and Cannonier also came off a good victory in his last fight, so
Mm,
it does not put a fighter like the Litze to fight someone like Cannonier because it's like you climbing up the rankings, the Litze, you 3-0 in the middleweight division, and now you take if you want to continue to grow, the next best person for you to fight that would be available from the UFC and an athlete himself would be someone like Jared Cannonier. I don't know if Jared Cannonier at 41 years old can campaign to take on someone like a Kyle Baralio or Robert Whittaker any one of those guys that are still above them. Maybe Easy, because Easy lost now twice in a row. You could get Easy, but I don't know if Janet Cannonier is being prioritized in that manner by the UFC. So they might just feed him someone like Roman Dolidze. You know what I mean? It just makes
Yeah.
sense in that regard. And also, I don't know if Dolidze did enough for me to go up against the top 6. That just doesn't fit for me.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, drop a comment there if you have any thoughts on this. We'd be very happy to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts. And of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Appreciate you,
Mhm.
bro. Any final thoughts here, BG?
That's kind of funny. What's next for Marvin Vettori is my next thing. My next thought
Mm.
is going there is like, because now 2-year layoff, coming back, fought the guy who beat you last. Well, and then he was the guy who beat him last, but getting another fight, and you lost this one and put you 1-on-1, and you just lost to someone who was ranked 12 at the time. Doesn't sit well for someone like Marvin Vettori, and yeah, unfortunately, he's gonna have to fight down the card now, and I'm not sure what his age is. But yeah, he's gonna have to fight downward going forward to make himself climb that ladder again.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Okay then, BG. In that case, we'll keep it moving and we'll go to a welterweight bout. And we saw
Mhm.
Chidi Njokuani defeat Eliseo Saleski dos Santos by second round TKO. So yeah, a great performance. Chidi was an underdog on the card here, and I actually realized after the event was over that if you had just bet on the main and co-main that we
Mm.
had predicted, we would have actually won some money. So the 1 week we didn't bet,
Yeah.
we would have made money
Yeah.
on two underdogs, brother. Let's say and
Yeah.
Njokuani were underdogs here. But
Ah.
yeah, Njokuani, great performance. The first round was a bit shaky. There were moments that were a bit shaky for him, but he did well.
Mm.
The kicking on display in this fight in general was very good to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really high level stuff. Low telegraph. Just yeah, very clean
Mm.
striking in the kicking department here. And yeah, good to see the teep out, and it ended up finishing with a knee up the middle. So yeah,
Mm.
overall great performance, shocking the bookmakers. BG, any
Mhm.
thoughts on this one, bro?
Yeah, I don't know why they made Chidi as the underdog, considering that he's actually on a good win streak since he's entered the welterweight. So it's a bit weird they did that. He's also the bigger, more powerful guy, and the kind of athletes that Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos has lost to in the past is exactly the frame size and fighters that are similar to Chidi Bang Bang. So it was weird that they made him the underdog. But like you mentioned, the Muay Thai display of kicks from Chidi Bang Bang was absolutely amazing. It was really making Zaleski struggle to get in on distance to actually find a rhythm. He did look a bit cool in the made Chidi a little bit uh, uneasy in the first parts of that first round, but it didn't take long before Chidi figured out how to get through that. And you mentioned the leg kicks, and I think Dominic Cruz had said it really well on broadcast, where the reason why there's no telegraph, if you look at the way he throws those kicks, it's almost like he keeps his hips backwards, like he keeps his butt back and his hips away, so that if he throws the kick, an opponent can't really shoot on him because then he already has his hips away from you, and then he can counter a takedown, which is why it's difficult to actually take him down. Not only because he's tall, but he does have a way of bringing his hips away, so there's no way you can shoot on him. So that's really amazing to see. But it does also mean that his kicks don't have a lot of power, but they have a lot of whip and velocity at it. So even though it's not going to knock you out, it's going to make you really second guess your entries. It's going to make you really think about how do you get through these kind of weapons. And that's what was happening for Zaleski. He was still struggling to navigate those kicks. And it pretty much set up the advantages for Chidi, because like you mentioned, he threw a nice Muay Thai double knee in the clinch. And then it came off where Zaleski actually shot down. He actually shot and he just took the Thai clinch and threw a double knee. Perfect display. And we did say he was going to finish the fight by knockout. I think I did say second round as well. And yeah, there you go. That's a fantastic performance by Chidi Bang Bang. And I like how the UFC is carefully curating his career in the welterweight division. They're not giving him killers immediately, because he had a tough time in the middleweight division. Let's be honest. So they really like carefully giving him some opponents that are good matchups for him, but also that can test him in the same way. Because Zaleski is no joke, dude. That this man could knock out people. There was a moment in the fight where I think he threw a 1-2 combination. There was two hooks, and he did land on Chidi, and Chidi didn't like it. You could see he didn't like that. And I was like, you see, it just takes one of these shots. In fact, I think it rocked him. I think it did rock him. So yeah, it wasn't as easy as it looked in terms of the statistics. And if you go watch the fight, I think there was moments that was very dangerous that he had to watch out for. But put a very good performance on, and as long as it lasted, top stuff.
Yeah, yeah, agreed, agreed. So yeah, do you think he's ready for a ranked opponent now? You did mention that they're kind of curating his career. Is
Mm.
it time yet?
I think it's time. That puts him at what, 3 wins? Also 3 wins in the welterweight, if I'm not mistaken. I would love to see him go up against someone in the top 15. Um, does Michael Venom Page have a fight?
Doesn't.
No. I think Vicente
Yeah.
Luque does have a fight. Carlos Prates has got a fight coming up very soon, 314. I don't think anyone else above that should be someone that he should be fighting. I think Michael Morales might be very tough. Actually, that would be a good fight considering Michael Morales is very new to the UFC and he's a top prospect. And I think that would be a very good fight for both those guys. It'll be a test for Michael Morales and it'll be a test for Chidi Bang Bang. So I would love to see that. In terms of, I don't know why Wonderboy Thompson is still there.
Yeah, I was
No,
gonna
I don't know
say.
why. I don't know why his name is still there, and I think he should actually be removed from the UFC because if you look at him, they've only been giving him fights to sort of fight against contenders, and yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a waste for me. So I think
Mm,
Michael Morales takes on someone like Chidi Bang Bang who's on a 3-fight win streak. That makes a lot of sense because then win or lose both guys, it's a high pressured fight because you can't lose that fight. The one is up and coming, the other one's into the welter division. He needs to keep up this run to continue because you've been in the UFC for quite some time. So now wouldn't be a time for you to lose a fight. You need to continue that win streak. So who better than go up against someone that's on a rise like Michael
mm.
Morales? So I would love to see that one. Because Carlos
Yeah,
Prates is fighting against Chef Neil next. They already made that
yeah,
fight. So
yeah. I
if
mean, it
Michael
would either
Morales,
be Morales or, I mean, like you said, Wonderboy does fight the up and comers, so it could be him. I
could
imagine
be him
Michael
also.
Page will probably fight someone higher up.
Mm, mm.
I imagine that I mean,
He won his last
he
fight,
might
Michael.
he might fight Carlos Prates at some point. Michael Page. I think that could be interesting.
That's if Carlos Prates beats Jeff Neal.
Yeah,
But let's see.
but
Let's
even
see how it
even if
goes.
even if he loses, but yeah, we'll get around to that when it comes. But okay, BG, any final thoughts on these fighters or the rankings, anything like that?
Um, yeah, I mean, Judy Bang Bang did say at the end of the fight that you can take. He said, "Give me anybody. I'm not going to call out the name, but give me anyone in that top 15 because he really wants to fight top 15." So I think they're going to give him that. And yeah, I really think that Michael Winnipage won his last fight against Shadow Bullet, and that definitely catapults him now because he was calling for that fight and he got it and he did it, and everyone was hyping Shadow Bullet and he just took that man's O. So that does give him a lot of leverage in the UFC. Um, for Chidi Bang Bang, what gives him the leverage is that he's 3-0 in this division, and like I said, Michael Morales doesn't have a fight, so that's probably what we're going to see there. So I'm quite excited for that division. It's starting to develop really nicely again.
For sure, for sure. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any thoughts about what should happen next year in the welterweight division, drop us a comment and let us know. So, BG, you did see the rest of these fights here.
Yes, sir.
I didn't, so I'm now going to hand it over to you, sir,
Okay,
and just
perfect.
briefly touch base here.
All right, I'm not going to talk about the Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Halaba fight because it was an absolute snooze fest, just as bad as Yasmin versus what's her name, Uh,
Lemos.
Lemos. Yeah, it's very similar to that, so I'm not going to talk about it. Damon Blackshear took on Cody Gibson. Cody Gibson was obviously cut and came back to the UFC. Was in Ultimate Fighter season 31. Damon Blackshear obviously has got quite a good name. People in the UFC speak very highly of him. I'd love to. I was very excited to see him perform because I wanted to see what the hype was about. And yeah, we always knew he was a fantastic grappler. We knew that. And I must say, Cody Gibson came in hot, came in very hot in that first round, put the pressure on Damon, took him down, piecing him up, rocked him a few times, was really doing fantastic. And then I think he tried to land a submission of his own, but it didn't really work. But he was throwing a lot of takedowns at Blackshear, which I thought was strange. I felt that Cody was pushing on the pace a bit too hard for me. I was like, why is he doing it? Because there's still 2 more rounds after this. And Blackshear did call it out. He did say that I was patient enough to let him burn himself out. And I knew once he's burnt out, I'm going to finish him. And that's exactly what he did. He then took Cody down in the second round, reversed Cody's positions. And then he was on top, laying good elbows to the body, and then sunk in a fantastic Kimura. It's like one of those classic Kimura because he worked himself into the position where he had the ultimate leverage he could get just easily without any sort of struggle, just tap out bitch. Beautiful. So I thought, no, good performance from Damon Blackshear. And yeah, looking forward to seeing him perform in the bantamweight division. As for Cody, just get rid of this guy now, please. Just like that's the end of it for me. Like he came back, went on a 2-fight win streak, but fought like a bunch of nobodies, and now he lost when he took on someone who's considered to be a rising contender. So yeah, I think Cody's kind of washed out after this performance. And yeah, I'd love to see more of Damon Blackshear going forward. Then we are going to move down the card to Dia Noguzai, and that's the guy that Baba was highlighting in our preview. He said this was his debut in the UFC, so I was keen to see what it was all about. He took on Brenson Ribeiro, who we've seen in the UFC so far. And Brenson didn't look like he was discouraged at all. He looked like he was amped for this fight. He looked a cleaner fighter. He looked a smaller fighter. The Yar came into this fight with missing weight by 4 pounds. I think he should just go fight heavyweight, to be honest with you, because he's quite massive for light heavyweight and doesn't look quite comfortable in the weight division. I think the weight cut might just be too strong for him. Whereas Brenson looks like he should actually fight middleweight for me. I think he might be a bit small for light heavyweight division. But he went in there and he wasn't discouraged by anything, and he threw sharper strikes. He got taken down by Dia, which was kind of strange, and then reversed the position by having again a Kimura lock. Reversed the position, got the leverage, did the same thing Blackshear did. Basically, there was no referee. He would have taken his arm off his body if there was no referee. So, yeah, big performance from Brenson. I actually am excited to see him perform in this as he goes forward because he looks sharp and shredded for the light heavyweight division. A little bit undersized for me, but I think he might be a problem in that division. I don't know about the champion, but he will be a problem. And so Dia, very, very bad start to his UFC career. But let's see, maybe he turns it around going forward. I mean, Marab lost his first fight and now he's the current champion. So let's see how that goes. All right, and then we're going to move down to the featured bout, which was a debutant for Kevin Vallejos. He was in the contender series. He took on Song Woo Choi. And I don't know, I think Song was also probably called it for a year, 32 years old. Didn't look like he really wanted to be in the cage, to be honest with you. He was a bigger man. He was a 6'1" featherweight. 6'1" featherweight. Are you fucking kidding me? How big that is. Kevin Vallejos looked like half his size, but Kevin didn't look like he wasn't panicking for anything. He was just timing it, timing. Every time Song Woo Choi would throw, overextended left hand or an overextended right hand, Kevin just steps back and counters him with a 2-punch combo, and that counters really beautifully, and that's how he actually landed the finish. Strong right hand, right hook, dropped Song Woo Choi, and yeah, that's all she wrote. That was the end of the fight right there. But that's what was called by everybody. I felt like it was a bit of a setup fight for Kevin as he came in because he's a character and a half. So yeah, looking forward to see him as well in the featherweight division. Also a little bit undersized, but I mean Ilya Topuria, Volkanovski, these guys weren't the biggest in terms of height, but yeah, they built like bricks, man. So yeah, I'm excited for that featherweight division because John Silver, you got Kevin. No. Rufi's a lightweight. But I mean, dude, exciting times for that featherweight division. Really, I am excited for it. But that was it. That was the fights that I watched. I didn't watch the rest of the card off other than that. And I thought it was quite nice to see that there was a number of stoppages on this fight card, considering there was a card that I thought it was going to be very, very boring. So I have to give props for that.
Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus going into the fight. Everybody was going into the fight card. Everybody was like complaining. I think we have a video out about how bad the fight card actually is.
Oh yeah.
But the narrative seems to be that there were some really good performances on the night. So fair play to those athletes involved. BG, so give us your final thoughts here and then a rating for the main card, please.
Thank you for that question because I was going to say I can't give a rating for the whole card, but I can give a rating for the main card. And I'm going to give a rating for the main card a solid 5. And I'm going to say 5 because I would have loved them to have taken Alexander Hernandez and Kurt Alaba and dropped them down all the way because that fight was absolutely meaningless. There was nothing to it. If anything, those guys were actually on their way out of the organization, so they could have dropped that. And then it would have made the card a little bit higher for me. I would have given it a 7 that did that because the other fights on the main card were actually really entertaining. There were finishes. The first 3 fights all ended within the first 2 rounds. And then Chidi Bang Bang ended the fight in the second round as well. So there were 2 fights that went to unanimous decision. But the main event decision fight wasn't boring. I actually enjoyed that fight. So, yeah, I'm still going to give it a 5 because I felt like UFC kind of slapped the fans in the face with putting this fight card together. This card together.
Do you want to watch that?
I mean, yeah, fair play, BG. I can't give a rating for the card myself just because, like I said, I only did watch the main and co-main. I wasn't gonna wake up at 1 a.m. for all of this, bro. So, sorry, guys. But yeah, if you have made it this far, ladies and gentlemen, please like, share, subscribe, and watch the podcast every day. Joe Rogan. But BG, we are going to wrap it up here, and we will of course be back. There is a massive week of fights coming up. The One Championship, 172, as well as UFC London.
Yeah.
Main cards, live streams coming up, all of that
Yeah.
stuff, ladies and gentlemen. So please keep an eye out. We are going to the moon and back for you.
Yeah.
And we hope to
Yeah.
see you back here next time on Fighting with Friends.